The Prison Ecology Project strongly believes that prisons are toxic to the souls of those incarcerated within them and who work within them, the communities that they're in, and that mass incarceration is a blight and toxic to the soul of our entire community and society. We also recognize that far too often these prisons are literally toxic, and we're particularly concerned about the prison here, the youth jail here in Seattle, the fact that dry cleaning chemicals contaminate the soil around it, the proposals to construct underground cells surrounded by that contaminated soil, and the long-term health impacts of locking up children directly next to toxic chemicals that they're exposed to over a long period of time. And we're currently looking into and investigating those impacts. I would also point out that here in Seattle and in Washington, we're currently leading the nation in greenwashing our prisons, and we strongly do believe that the only green prison is an empty prison. And the environmental movement stands strongly with those in this room opposing that prison and supporting a move to zero youth incarceration, and that if y'all want to uphold your commitment of Seattle as a green city, I ask you to move there and put the resources behind it to actually implement this resolution. Thank you.
And I just want to point out 3 things. The first, I think it's spoken to in this resolution. I do support the resolution. I do support the idea of zero use of detention. But I also know from working in institutions that implementation is key, and that we've had a lot of good efforts and good intent that come out with hard outcomes that our kids end up suffering. So the first thing I want to point out is that very much, as your statistics say, African American youth are abused not just by the criminal justice and juvenile justice system, but by our health care, by our police, by every system out there. We see our kids at the bottom of that. And so I think that that is a mechanism that you should look at. That's an indicator that when we look at solutions, they must be led by Black youth. I want to just state that. It must be led by Black youth, by the Black community, by Black folks that have been in the system.
First, I want to say we're sitting on stolen Suquamish and Duwamish land. Let's start with that. Well, everybody has claims right over make laws on this land. But I want to point something out. I not only support this, and I think you guys should pass it, but it's nowhere near far enough, because in the end, you're still supporting incarceration at the moment as long as you're not physically stopping this. As long as you're not coming out putting your neck on the line to physically stop this, you're supporting torturing youth. And as a poor Black person has been in that juvenile, has been in prison, I'm gonna make it very clear, we do not need that. Your solution for housing is incarceration. So realizing that we sit here on stolen land as stolen people and held here to use to prop up your PIC, your prison industrial complex, to make youth so that in the future they will work in Unicorn to build your military weapons to attack other Black and brown people, obviously points out that you guys aren't taking it far enough in this resolution. It's just one step, and you guys need to immediately follow with the next one.
Thank you, sir.
And I think that we need to end these systems that keep Black and brown bodies, Black and brown youth, in these systems that are just killing us. When I was in these systems, I wanted to die, I didn't want to live, and I think you guys need to take that seriously, because, you know, I could not be here today because of that, but it's because I got out of it and I was with the Black community that I was able to, you know, move on. And I also think that you need to get away from this colorblind logic, because it's part of racism. We cannot sit here and say, oh, it's being anti-white or it's anti-police. At the end of the day, police are paid to hunt Black and brown bodies. At the end of the day, racism exists, it's still alive and well, and if we're not looking at racism and anti-Blackness and white supremacy, then none of these solutions mean anything.
Thank you,
because you're ignoring that Black and brown bodies suffer in this city.
If we're going to have zero detention, we're going to have to support the alternatives that communities are working on. We're going to have to look at there's programs out there that are working that community supports. We need to expand those programs. We need to give people the skills and the resources to take their destiny into their own hands. What's happening now isn't working. It's killing communities of color. The disparities are a disgrace to the county, to everybody who represents the county. There's a way we can do better. We're at a very important moment right now. There's a lot of momentum that should be acknowledged that got us to this moment. There was a time I was almost dragged out from the council meeting across the street for saying that zero detention should be the goal of the county. So I'm glad that you got this resolution, and I believe that you're going to pass it. But I'm going to ask you to go a step farther, and I'm going to let you know that the people we're going to be with you. We're going to be pushing you to make sure that you go a step farther. I think we can get there. So thank everybody.